The Enchanted Opera House. Deep in the heart of the iridescent city stood the Opera House of Lumra, a grand, towering structure said to be older than memory itself. Its spires reached toward the heavens, and its walls shimmered with an ever-changing glow, as if painted by sunlight and moonlight at once. But the true magic lay inside the central opera hall, a place where the mundane and the extraordinary intertwined. The opera hall had long been known as a haven for ghosts. These were no ordinary spirits, doomed to haunt in sorrow or malice. No, these ghosts were performers, patrons, and lovers of the arts from centuries past. They glided through the vast hall, their ethereal forms weaving like silver ribbons in the air, their laughter like the soft chime of bells. Their favorite pastime was swirling around the enormous crystal chandelier that hung above the audience, its thousands of prisms catching the ghostly light and scattering it like a million tiny stars. But the ghosts were not the only magical inhabitants of the opera hall. In the shadows of the grand stage slept Aurevius, a majestic dragon with scales like molten gold and emerald eyes that glowed softly in the dark. Aurevius was a patron of the arts in his own right, a creature who found joy in the music, stories, and dances that filled the opera hall. Though he could reduce a castle to ash with a single breath, he preferred to spend his days listening to arias and watching ballets. Occasionally, during a performance, he would emerge from his slumber to step onto the stage, his vast wings spreading wide as he gazed at the audience. The crowd would erupt in awe and delight, for to see Aurevius up close was to witness a wonder of the magical world. A night to remember. On a moonlit evening, as the enchanted winds brought travelers from all corners of the magical world, the opera house buzzed with anticipation. Tonight's performance was a special one, a collaboration between the living and the spectral. The ghosts had spent weeks choreographing a hauntingly beautiful dance, while Aurevius had agreed to lend his fire and flight for the finale. The audience filed in, filling the velvet-covered seats, their eyes wide with wonder. There were elves with silver hair, dwarfs with intricately braided beards, merfolk who shimmered like the ocean, and even a few fairies whose wings glowed softly in the dim light. Each had come to witness the impossible blend of art and magic that only Lumra's opera house could provide. As the orchestra began to play, the hall came alive. Ghostly dancers appeared, their translucent forms swirling in harmony with the music. The chandelier above seemed to pulse with light, casting an ethereal glow that blurred the line between the living and the dead. The audience was entranced, their breaths held as the performance unfolded like a dream. Then, as the music reached its crescendo, the stage darkened. A hush fell over the crowd, broken only by the soft rustle of wings. Aurevius emerged, his golden scales glinting in the dim light. He moved with a grace that belied his size, his presence commanding yet gentle. With a mighty leap, he took to the air, his wings beating in time with the music. Fire burst from his maw, not in destruction but in delicate arcs of light that danced across the hall. The ghosts joined him, their forms weaving around him like a silken veil. Together, they created a spectacle of harmony and beauty, a testament to the unity of the opera house's inhabitants. The audience erupted into applause and cheers, their faces alight with wonder and gratitude. A place of eternal magic. As the night ended and the guests began to leave, the opera house stood silent once more. The ghosts returned to their playful dances, and Aurevius curled up on the stage, content and at peace. The opera hall, with its enchanted chandelier and its eternal performers, remained a beacon of magic and artistry, a place where the impossible became reality and where every performance was a masterpiece. And so, the Opera House of Lumra continued to thrive, its fame spreading across the magical world. It was a place where anyone, living or dead, could find joy and inspiration, and where the friendship between ghosts and a golden dragon reminded all who visited that true magic lay not just in spells or power but in the stories we share and the connections we cherish. The Tale of Aurelius and the Blue Scales. Life in the Opera House of Lumra was never dull, but one peculiar morning, a ripple of shock passed through its enchanted halls. Aurelius, the majestic golden dragon, emerged from his slumber not with his usual resplendent scales but shimmering hues of sapphire and cobalt. His golden brilliance had been replaced by deep, swirling shades of blue that gleamed like the ocean under moonlight. At first, Aurelius roared in fury, shaking the walls of the opera hall. The ghosts scattered like frightened birds, and even the chandelier trembled. Someone had dared to tamper with his appearance, a grave insult to a dragon's pride. Determined to find the culprit, Aurelius leaped into the skies, his powerful wings stirring the clouds as he soared over the iridescent city. He didn't have to search for long. His keen senses led him to the enchanted market at the edge of the city, where a giggling young sorceress was showing off her magic to a crowd of curious onlookers. She couldn't have been more than 12 years old, her robe slightly oversized, her staff more of a polished stick. Her auburn hair bounced as she laughed, and her emerald green eyes sparkled mischievously. She turned as Aurelius descended, his massive form blotting out the sun. "Was it you?" the dragon growled, his voice like distant thunder. "Did you bewitch my scales?" The girl gulped but then straightened her shoulders. "It was just a little joke," she said, her voice trembling but defiant. "I thought it would make you look unique. Blue suits you, doesn't it?" For a moment, the crowd held their breath. Dragons were not known for their sense of humor. But instead of incinerating her, Aurelius threw back his head and let out a booming laugh, startling even himself. The dragon had to admit, his new appearance was striking, and the spell was harmless. "What's your name, little sorceress?" he asked, his tone now far gentler. "Elara," she said with a small bow. "I just wanted to see if I could change something big." "And you're the biggest thing in Lumra." Aurelius chuckled again, his deep voice echoing through the market. "You're bold, Elara. I like that. But next time, ask before you use me for your experiments." The dragon decided to keep the spell for a while, enjoying the attention his new appearance garnered. As for Elara, her playful magic caught on. Soon, nobles, performers, and even ghosts were queuing up at the opera house for her transformative spells. She turned gowns into living constellations, suits into shimmering water, and even changed the chandelier's crystals to shift colors with the music. Elara became the resident costume mistress and her fame spread far beyond the city. Other wonders of Lumra's opera house. The story of Aurelius and Elara was just one of many extraordinary events in the opera house's long history. Here are a few others. 1. The song that woke the stars. One summer evening, the opera house hosted the premiere of a new aria, The Lament of the Heavens. It was said to be so beautiful that it could move mountains, and indeed, as the soprano's voice rose to a celestial high note, the stars above Lumra began to shift. To the astonishment of the audience, constellations rearranged themselves, forming images of the performers and their instruments. This celestial choreography continued for the rest of the performance, as if the stars themselves were captivated by the music. Later, astronomers reported that the heavens had remained in this new arrangement, immortalizing the opera house's glory for all time. 2. The Phantom Duet. One moonless night, as the orchestra rehearsed for an upcoming performance, a ghostly violin began to play alongside them. The living musicians exchanged puzzled looks but continued, curious rather than afraid. The spectral violinist revealed herself as Amara, a celebrated musician who had perished centuries ago. She joined the orchestra as a silent partner, her ethereal music blending seamlessly with theirs. The audience was none the wiser during the performance, but rumors of Amara's ghostly duet spread. Afterward, performers began leaving small gifts, roses, sheet music, and even chocolates, for the phantom musician. To this day, Amara's violin can sometimes be heard during late-night rehearsals, her spectral presence a source of inspiration rather than fear. 3. The Living Ballet. One spring, a troupe of dryads arrived at the opera house, offering to perform a ballet unlike any other. These forest spirits, bound to the ancient oaks near Lumra, brought their own magic to the stage. With each step, flowers bloomed from the floorboards, vines crept up the curtains, and the entire hall filled with the scent of a blooming meadow. For the grand finale, the dryads transformed into trees themselves, their leafy arms reaching toward the chandelier. As they swayed to the final notes, their magic lingered, leaving the stage covered in a carpet of soft moss that remained for weeks. 4. The Ghosts' Masquerade. One particularly mischievous evening, the ghosts of the opera house decided to host their own masquerade. They enchanted masks to float through the air and invited the audience to join them. To everyone's surprise, the masks allowed the living to dance with the dead, creating a unique harmony between the two realms. For hours, the hall was filled with laughter, music, and the soft glow of ghostly lights. The event became an annual tradition, with guests from across the magical world attending in hopes of waltzing with a spirit. The Opera House of Lumra remained a place where the impossible became reality, where magic and artistry intertwined to create wonders beyond imagination. And through it all, Aurelius, Elera, and their many friends continued to weave new stories, ensuring that the Opera House would forever be a beacon of enchantment and joy. The White Queen's Visit. The announcement of Queen Carmilla's visit to the Lumra Opera House sent waves of excitement and urgency through the enchanted halls. The White Queen was a figure of both beauty and power, known not only for her wisdom and grace but for the radiant halo of light that perpetually illuminated her. Her presence alone was said to bring a sense of peace, as if her very being was imbued with celestial magic. Preparations began immediately. The ghosts took it upon themselves to polish every crystal of the great chandelier until it gleamed like a constellation. Elera, the young sorceress, was tasked with enchanting the stage curtains to shimmer with threads of moonlight and stars. Musicians practiced tirelessly, their instruments tuned to perfection, while the dryads returned to weave living flowers into the audience's seats, ensuring the hall was not only beautiful but fragrant with the scent of enchanted blossoms. Aurelius, the reluctant to leave his stage perch, took flight to oversee the arrival of rare materials. He carried silk from the eastern peaks, golden threads spun by the sun sprites, and even a vial of liquid starlight to be poured into the queen's tea. For the first time in decades, he allowed his scales to return to their golden hue, wishing to present himself in his original majesty. The day of the Queen's arrival, the entire opera house seemed to glow. A magical white carpet unfurled from the entrance, and as Carmilla's carriage, an ornate creation of gold and ivory, arrived, a chorus of spectral voices rose to greet her. The Queen stepped out, her white gown catching the glow of her halo, and smiled softly at the assembled performers and staff. "Truly," she said, her voice as soothing as a gentle breeze, "you have outdone yourselves. Performances fit for a queen." The evening's program had been carefully curated. It began with the Dance of Eternal Lights, a ghostly ballet performed under the chandelier's radiant glow. The ghosts moved with such grace and synchronicity that even the most stoic of Carmilla's knights seemed mesmerized. Aurelius himself participated, his massive form weaving between the dancers, his golden wings casting rippling patterns of light across the hall. Next came the aria of the stars, sung by a siren whose voice seemed to transport the audience to the heavens. As she sang, Elera's magic filled the hall with projections of galaxies and nebulae, creating a breathtaking celestial panorama. Carmilla watched in awe, her luminous halo mingling with the starlight, her usually calm demeanor giving way to open wonder. The final act was a play performed by the living and the spectral, telling the tale of a brave queen who united warring kingdoms. It was a clear homage to Carmilla herself, and as the play concluded with a scene of peace and prosperity, the queen rose to her feet, leading the hall in a standing ovation. "You have captured the very essence of unity," she said warmly, "and for that, I thank you." The sorcerer's attack. But not everyone celebrated Carmilla's visit. In the shadows of the western wastes, a sorcerer named Malagrath seethed with envy. Known for his dark arts and hatred of light, he despised Carmilla's influence and sought to humiliate her. Using his black magic, he created shadow creatures, monstrous beings that fed on light, and sent them to the opera house during the Queen's visit. The attack came during the Queen's private reception after the performances. The shadows seeped into the hall, extinguishing the enchanted lights and causing panic among the guests. Malagrath himself appeared, a towering figure cloaked in darkness, his voice echoing with malice. "Your light will fade, Carmilla," he snarled, raising his staff to strike. But Aurelius was ready. The dragon leapt into action, his golden form blazing like the sun. With a deafening roar, he unleashed a torrent of fire, forcing the shadows to retreat. The Queen's guards fought valiantly alongside him, their swords enchanted with light spells to pierce the darkness. Elera, though terrified, joined the fray, using her magic to create bursts of radiant energy that banished the shadows. Even the ghosts pitched in, weaving themselves into protective barriers around the Queen and her retinue. The battle was fierce, but united, the defenders of the opera house prevailed. Malagrath, realizing he was outmatched, fled with a snarl, vowing revenge. A reward for the hero. Once the danger had passed, the Queen approached Aurelius, her halo shining even brighter in gratitude. She removed a golden medallion from around her neck, an ancient artifact known as the Order of Luminous Valor, and placed it around the dragon's neck. "Brave Aurelius," she said, her voice filled with reverence, "you have not only protected me but ensured the safety of this wondrous place. You are a true guardian of light." The audience, staff, and even the ghosts erupted into cheers, their voices echoing through the enchanted hall. Aurelius, for all his might, lowered his head humbly, touched by the Queen's gesture. A new tradition. From that day forward, Queen Carmilla became a regular visitor to the opera house. Each month, she would arrive with her retinue, eager to see the latest performances and bask in the magic of Lumira. The friendship between the Queen and the opera house became legendary, and her visits brought even greater renown to its enchanted halls. The story of the White Queen and the Golden Dragon became one of the opera house's most cherished tales, a symbol of unity and courage in the face of darkness. And so, the opera house continued to thrive, its magic growing stronger with every song, every dance, and every story shared within its walls.